Good morning, everybody. This is Martin John, and we're here to talk about the Tao Te Ching. The Tao Te Ching is an ancient text written about 600 BCE, and being such an old text, it's all part of our history of being, our history of writing, and our history of understanding the nature of the universe. So what we do here on Tao of the Day is I invite you up to the stage so that you can have a chat with me, and I'll ask what's going on with you these days, and we'll just get a baseline. We'll get a baseline for talking about what we're talking about. What is the topic that we're dealing with today? What are you looking for guidance on? What is happening in your life? And once that baseline is established, I'm going to ask you to pick a number. I'm going to ask you to pick a number between 1 and 81. Why 1 and 81? Because there are 81 chapters in the Tao Te Ching. And when you pick a number, that's going to associate with that which we talked about previously. And then we'll just break it down and see if there's a new way of looking at or addressing the things that are going on in your life and what you have going on. So, the Tao Te Ching, presumably written by Lao Tzu, 600 BC. Is that right? And so what I want to do is just have you come up, and then we could chat a little bit about the Tao. If you have any questions about the Tao, or if you want to pick a number, please come up. I'm going to go ahead and pick a number. Let me see what is going on with me these days. Maybe I can kind of help create a baseline for myself. I have a friend of mine staying with me, probably for about 6 months or so. And last night I had a wonderful conversation with. I have what we refer to each other as like accountability buddies, but we don't hold each other accountable. Even though that's sort of like what the word refers to, we really just sort of check in what's going on with him, what's going on with me. We've been doing this for about a decade or so, and it was great. We had we are both sort of in this state of, as we enter summer, we are pretty chill. There's not a lot of things happening. There's a little, I had a little kind of thoughts of like, oh, well, I don't have any work in the near future. I wonder what's going to happen. So that's what's sort of been going on. But I don't stress over it. I know everything's good. So I'm going to pick number 77. The bending of a bow. Tao acts on the world as the bending of a bow. The top is forced down when the bottom is moved up. It is impossible for one to act without the other responding. Unlike man, Tao is patient and neutral, quietly adjusting excess and deficiencies, taking from what is too much and giving to what isn't enough. Ordinary men go against Tao, taking resources from areas that are deficient, giving resources to areas that compulsively consume. The master knows all things are being adjusted. Although she cannot always see it in action, she has faith it is working through her. In this way, she allows her actions to unfold, neither dwelling on them nor taking credit. Aligned with Tao, they complement all things. The line that really stood out to me for this, first of all, yes, I love this one because it is about adjustments. Adjustments are being made even if we don't see them, even if we can't identify them. And that's a big issue within the manifestation, because you want to see your effect on the world. You want to see the world becoming a better place. You think you have a way of doing that, and we want to affect the world in a positive way, and so we want to see results. This is that compulsive consuming that was mentioned. The line that stands out to me the most is neither dwelling on them nor taking credit. It's so important for us to live our lives and not dwell. I know so many places where everybody is trying to tell us to celebrate our wins and all of this. And yes, there are benefits to doing that. But things are happening, and things are happening in the background that we don't know about, that we're unaware of. You know, when friends of mine call me and say, you know, I'm having a bad time, I've been sad recently, and then they start to tell me the story of why they're sad. You know, they start to fill in all the blanks, and I say, whoa, 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 whoa. You know, first of all, you aren't 100% sure that's why you're having these feelings. Like, yes, maybe, you know, your partner left you or whatever, and you're alone and you're lonely and all of these things. Yes, those things may be the case, and those things may be uh, topics that you can point to say, this is why I'm sad. However, we have no idea what's going on in other realms. Like, and when I say that, I just mean like other aspects. We don't know. Maybe we've just been not adequately hydrated as well, so it makes it worse. Maybe we have engaged in more pacifiers like sugars or alcohol or watching junk TV. That, you know, what ends up happening is I don't have a baseline to be happy, right? There's all of these things. Like when you pull on one, like the bending of a bow, when you pull down on your diet, what ends up happening is you pull up on the response to that. Like if you're eating a lot of sugar, you're going to feel the withdrawal from it when you quit, or you're going to be not thinking as clearly as if, you know, you weren't engaged in sugars or alcohol or, you know, marijuana, cocaine, whatever, you know, like all sorts of drugs. I mean, even caffeine. So you might be sad because your partner left you, but it may be even worse because your partner left you and now you're eating sugar. And so you're eating sugar, and that's going to make it harder for you to get out of it, because the sugar is going to, you know, maybe stave off the sadness for a moment, but then it's going to come roaring back because it's being adjusted. It's continually being adjusted. So the Tao axe on the world is the bending of a bow. And, you know, the body is interesting. The body wants to stay in stasis. The body wants to stay on a flat surface. The body, when you give the body something to make it feel more intense, when you give the body something to wake up, let's say coffee. Let's talk about coffee for a second. Everybody might be sitting down to their coffee right now. So let's burst that little bubble for you. So coffee gives us, you know, the caffeine in coffee. And I don't want to get into the science of everything because I know everything is up for grabs these days, but I'm just going to kind of talk about this in general. So don't take this as fact, although I'm going to talk about the opponent process. And the opponent process really relates to this bending of a bow. The opponent process is if you drink coffee every day, because your body wants to stay in stasis, what happens is you drink coffee and it wakes you up and your body goes, whoa, that was a bit of a burst. We want to stay calm. So what we're going to do is now that there's coffee and caffeine in the system, we're going to actually produce chemicals to make this body a little more tired so we can fight the effect of the coffee. So the body wants to stay normal. The coffee brings you up and the body starts to slow you down. But it's slowing you down so you can run at a normal speed. So your body can be normal. So it's fighting the effect of the caffeine. This is what the body does. It does this for crack. It does this for alcohol. It does this for sugar. It does this for anything that makes the body, that pushes the body beyond what it currently is, like any sort of drug that allows the body to feel more awake, to feel more stimulated, to feel, even even some like anti-anxiety meds. What happens is like, oh, our normal state is this much anxiety. You're going to take some anti-anxiety meds. We're going to increase your anxiety to fight that med. Hence why over time you have to increase your dosage or change your medication to trick the body so that it works. So eventually those sorts of things do take effect. Like for those people who take ibuprofen every day. Well, in order for you to be normal, you take ibuprofen. So you take ibuprofen, but there is a level of pain that your body is experiencing. And it's like, okay, well, in order for that to take effect, we're gonna increase the amount of pain that you feel so we can fight this drug. So this is the opponent process. You give yourself something and your body opposes it. It opposes it because it doesn't like to be shooken out of its stasis. Well, let's say you take coffee every day, every morning. Well, now your body is prepared for it. So every morning as you're waking up, your body is already running the caffeine protocol. It's saying, okay, some bitch is going to go and get some coffee as soon as they wake up. We're waking up. Let's make this body tired. Let's start the tired process so that we can stay in stasis, so we can stay normal. We know that caffeine is coming, so let's get them tired. Now, before you have your coffee, you are tired. You wake up and it's like, oh, I was so tired, man. I need coffee. Like all those stories about like, oh, I can't have a conversation until I've had my coffee, and it's like, well, if you never had coffee in the first place, then you'd be able to have that conversation. Then you have your coffee and you feel what? Normal. In order for you to feel normal, you are now attached to a certain product, a certain drug. Right? This is the bending of the bow. The Tao acts on the world as the bending of the bow. The top is forced down when the bottom is moved up. That's that opponent process. And this is in the body. Now, the Tao, like this is talking about like the Tao acting on the world, but you are a world in and of yourself. And so like, let's look at how balance happens within the body. It is impossible for one to act without the other responding. Whatever you do, your body is going to respond. If you exercise, your body is going to respond. If you eat, your body is going to respond. A lot of people, because of this opponent process, a lot of people get into a state of like almost exercise addiction. Because when they exercise, their bodies feel bad. So what's the opponent to that? Well, sending out dopamine, sending out good feeling drugs in the body, right? So if you engage a pacifier that makes you feel good, your body is going to create a opponent process that makes you feel bad. If you engage a practice that makes your body hurt, your body is going to make you feel better. So that's why, those people that we know that become like addicted to exercising, it's because, well, when they exercise, yes, it hurts their body, but their body then produces an opponent process that makes them feel good. It gives them more dopamine. It gives them, it starts running their system because they have brought their body down. Now the body has to respond in another way. So that's the opponent process. And this bending of the bow chapter, this bending of the bow verse really kind of talks about that. Unlike man, Tao is patient and neutral. Okay, this is a big thing. Like, how patient can we be? Unlike man, Tao is patient and neutral. So that means it doesn't care. When, like when we start talking about the idea of being neutral, it means, well, I don't care what you do. Like, I could love somebody, but if I'm going to be neutral, then if I love them deeply, they can live their life as they wish. Now that means they may live their life in a way that says like, well, I don't want to be with you anymore. And I have to be okay with that. That's being neutral. If you say, look, I want to be in a relationship with you and I want to love you, but I want you to live your life in a very specific way. Well, now we're starting to kind of split hairs and we're saying, okay, I'm going to love you as long as you do it this way, right? Like I'm going to engage with my body in this way or whatever, all of these sorts of things, because I have a relationship with my body, right? So unlike man, Tao is patient and neutral. Can we be neutral with our body? Can we say, oh, yes, I know you're addicted to cigarettes. Can we quit cigarettes? Can we change our relationship with our body? And can we get through that withdrawal from what our bodies have built to respond to our life? Our body is neutral. So let's say, we're engaging in sugars or whatever, and we're engaging in caffeine, and we're engaging in all these things, and we're like, okay, well, I want to change my relationship to these things. Well, your body is neutral in the sense that it will change, but it's also already set up to help you with the fact that it's expecting you to drink caffeine and it's expecting you to eat sugars, it's expecting you to smoke cigarettes or whatever it is. So because it's expecting you to do that, it's already set up to do that. And it's set up to help you with those things. So when you stop smoking, what's going to happen is you're going to cough and you're going to do all these things that are like, like all of this opponent process. It's going to make you feel lethargic. It's going to, maybe you're going to either lose or gain appetite, depending on what part of your quitting stage you're on. You're going to, you're going to eat more. Why are you going to eat more? Because you want something on your lips. You want something in your mouth. You're constantly, like you're when you're a smoker or when you're vaping or when you're doing all these things, you're constantly engaging your mouth. And so you get into the habit of doing this and your body gets into the habit of fighting it by making you feel a way that you need more, right? So it's making you feel anxious. And as you're feeling anxious, you're like, oh, I better have a cigarette. And you have the habit, right? So then you have it in your mind as well. Unlike man, Tao is patient and neutral, quietly adjusting excess and deficiencies. That's that opponent process that we were talking about. Quietly adjusting excess and deficiencies. Tao is in there, and it's happening in the world too. We can talk about greed. We can talk about, politics. We can talk about all sorts of stuff in the world today that in which things are being adjusted. And it's taking from what is too much and giving to what isn't enough. Now, once again, we have to go back to the beginning line of this section, which is like, unlike man, Tao is patient and neutral. It's not going to take a side, and it is patient. So yes, maybe over the last 100 years, we've been going in the wrong direction. We don't see the opponent process happening, but it is. We don't see Tao adjusting excess and deficiencies, which just seems like excess is becoming more excessive, right? As the rich become richer and the poor become poorer, and it's like, oh my God, like. But just like I was talking about earlier, telling the story. You tell the story of like, how you are sad or how you are upset or how you like, you don't know what else is going. You don't know what's going on astrologically. You don't know what's going on magnetically in the earth. You don't know what's going on energetically in, the region that you're living in or whatever. And because you don't know those things, you don't know if your sadness is really because of your breakup. You don't know what's going on in your body because of the sugars that you eat. You don't know of all of those things. So it's like you break up with somebody, you eat a bunch of sugar, but you also have the moon and you have the, magnetic field of the earth, and you have all of these things that are actually affecting you that you have no idea about. And so, yes, maybe it's because of your story, or maybe it's partially because of your story, but there's a bigger story out there. So the next line is, ordinary men go against Tao, taking resources from areas that are deficient and giving resources to areas that compulsively consume. This is happening in such an obvious way today. If we look out at the world, those who have more. Those who don't have always just seem to be coming out on the bottom. And those who we pay attention to, right, get more attention because everybody wants to advertise on what people are paying attention to. And so it's like, this is ordinary men. Ordinary men go against Tao. They go against, like, looking in the quiet places, looking in the subtle places. Ordinary men look at the big things, look at the big movements, look at the caffeine, look at the sugar, look at all, they go to the easy things, the things that it's just like, and they compulsively consume. Ordinary men. The master, now we're talking about in Tao, the person who follows Tao, the person who tries to align with Tao, is the master. So the master knows all things are being adjusted. They didn't know all things are being adjusted. There is no need to doubt that. And this is where we start getting into what I was dealing with, where last night I was like, oh, I don't know what's coming next, and things are closing off or whatever. I was just like, all right, that's okay. I know all things are being adjusted, and we're good. I'm good. And I know that what's next will present itself. And what's wonderful is that I'm just here doing this until that happens. The master knows all things are being adjusted, and although she cannot always see it in action, she has faith it is working through her. So this means you're a part of it. You're a part of that adjustment. And if you're going to be a part of that adjustment, if you're going to be a part of that adjustment in the world, you have to look at your actions. You have to look at, like, your patience. You have to also look at your neutrality. Are you being neutral? Or are you, giving resources to areas that compulsively consume? Because we're not always going to be able to see it in action. Sometimes it's like we get into a place where we believe that we're being hurt or we're being obstructed in the world. I'm going to bring Mary up. We're going to have a conversation. Mary, how are you doing?
I am good. How are you, Martin?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank
Good.
you for joining me. It was wonderful to chat with you on the back end.
Yes, it was nice hearing from you yesterday. I was looking forward to it. I was watching one of the online services that I usually watch on Sunday. I like desperately want to go to this church, but it's an hour and a half away from where I live, so it's not so easy to get there. You know what I mean? It's so far away, but it's a fantastic. You can just tell that it's a great church to go to. It's so hard to get to, and it's so hard to find a good church anymore. You know what I mean? It really is very difficult.
Yeah.
So, because I was with one for 2 years, and I just left it like 2.5 months ago, and so I've been very picky about where I'm going to go next, and I found this church by watching some different online services, and I
But,
just haven't been able to get there.
and I have to say, an hour and a half is not like for all of the churches everywhere. Like, you are an hour and a half. Like, that is really sort of an interesting sort of distance, because one, it's not ridiculous. It's
No,
not like 4 hours, 5 hours away, where it's like that's
no.
impossible. So, like,
Right.
there is a possibility, but the thing is it's just out of reach enough that, like, you're gonna have to, like, to get there. There's gonna be sacrifice.
Right. And you know what? It truly is worth it because for me, and it's, you know what, I'm going to tell you that it's interesting. This is only like the second time I think I've been able to hear your show. And like I said, it's been about 20 minutes into it. And it's very interesting. And I'm going to tell you why. It's um, because I know you believe in is it Tao or Tao? How do you pronounce
I
Tao?
pronounce it Dow.
Tao.
Yeah,
Okay.
Dow.
Okay.
As if a D, but then I'm from Chicago,
Mhm.
so like T's and D's, they're interchangeable.
They're like the same, right? Yeah. And so I really am, I try to have that like respect for each person's beliefs, right? And but I'll tell you that because when I was a little girl, about 5, 6 years old, my mom started bringing me to church, and I just fell in love with Jesus. I will tell you from that young age, oh, I just fell in love with Jesus. And about 11 years old, when I was 11, we stopped going to church. And so for the rest of my adult life, teen years, most of my adult life, I walked away from God. And it was probably about in my 30s and late 30s, whatever, that I began looking into different, I considered myself spiritual, right? And so I looked into, you know, like Tao and Buddhism and just so many different types of things that I just felt were spiritual, right?
Mhm,
But I was brought back to Jesus 2.5 years ago.
mhm.
And now when I hear like you talk about Taoism and other people, like they, there's the higher power, or there's this or different things. And it it sounds so very similar to God. And but it all comes back to God. He was the very beginning. And I've seen what he has done in my life. And so when it came down to me going to another church, the biggest reason I left the one I was at is it wasn't spirit filled. The Holy Spirit. Have you ever, I'm sure you've heard of the Holy Spirit, right? I mean,
Yes, yes, of course. I was raised with Jesus and God and all of
yeah,
those.
I thought you had said that the last time I'd heard you. Okay, so you know exactly what I'm talking about then. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And I am someone who just, um, I could tell from the minute that I walked into the church that I was at. And what was ironic, the reason I think I stayed so long is because the church I started attending a couple of years ago when I first came back to Jesus was the church that I was attending when I was 5.
Hmm.
But it wasn't the same pastor.
No, no,
Oh no, no, no. And I mean, goodness, if
things
it was,
change.
oh yeah, yeah. And just like a month or so into it, I was like, wow, they need a Holy Spirit revival in here.
Right. And all of these, like Holy Spirit, Jesus, God, Tao,
Hmm.
um, they're just words that stand in for what we experience. We're experiencing God, or we're experiencing Tao, or we're experiencing like the love of Jesus, and really all of that is coming from within us anyway. It's not like, I mean, God is outside of you, but your experience of it is internal. And these are all words that just are stand-ins for the same thing. And we would never want to, because when we are both spiritual and filled with the love of God or Jesus or Tao, or what ends up happening is we want to see God and Jesus within you. We want to be present. That's the whole like namaste thing for the yogis and things, right? Like it's
Hmm.
like, I see that within you. And that's beautiful, because if we allow, like I always used to say, I don't allow words to get in the way of a good conversation.
Oh no, absolutely. And I think that's why we have to be very intentional, right,
Right.
with what we say. And aside from intentionality, is that we also have to be very wise, or, well, I don't know if wise is exactly the right word, but, I'm not saying that we have to know what we're talking about before we just, like if I'm gonna talk to you about, well, let's just not even talk about like God for a minute. If I'm going to talk to you about nutrition, right? Like we have our nutritionists here on Noom or Noom Vibe, then I better know my A's, B's, and C's about nutrition before I try to give somebody advice. Like I'm not going to tell a diabetic, oh yes, it's okay for you to eat a pint of ice cream before you go to bed at night. You know what I mean? Sure, have some chocolate peanut butter cup, honey. You'll wake up and you won't be in diabetic shock. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not going to give that kind of advice. I need to know exactly what I'm talking about. And so it's the same when you want to have any good conversation with somebody, and that way you can feed back and forth off each other. Number one, you need to know what you're discussing and know that you're not going to mislead somebody, but you do need to be intentional with your words because A, you don't want to offend anyone, right? And you need to be somebody that you can agree to disagree, that
Right.
you're not someone who is easily offended, right? Um, and just that level of respect between people because that is so missing in today's society, I feel. And um, everybody's in that I'm right mode.
Oh, we're moving along, and I would love, now that we've had like some time to catch up and introduce ourselves a little bit, I'd love for you to pick a number between 1 and 81.
Let's go 25.
25. Oh, of course. This is entitled I Call It Tao.
Okay.
Now, this really references, God and creating of the universe and all of this. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to read it, and then you just tell me what comes out, what stands out to you, and then we'll dive in a little bit more.
Okay.
Before the manifestation of heaven, there is void. It is still and has no form. Inexhaustible, it reaches everywhere. It is at the core of everything. Since names became important, it has been called Tao. It flows amongst manifestation without resistance, inside, outside, conscious, and subconscious. Tao is great. Universes are great. Planets are great. Beings are great. These four are all great and follow the law of their principle. In beings, all beings follow their planet. Planets follow their universe. Universes follow Tao, and Tao follows only its nature.
Okay. So, what stood out for me with that is manifestation of the universe. Um, Only God was the creator. I
Mm-hmm.
am just such a firm believer. The one thing that was definite is that it was void. It definitely was void of everything. And now, as far as you have the Trinity, I don't know, many people don't understand the Trinity and how that came into God is the one who draws up the plans, right? Jesus is the voice, and the Holy Spirit is the one who creates. He's the energy. He's the one that turns on the light bulbs, man. You know, he's that flow. And so that's how the universe came in. You know, God was like telling Jesus, okay, dude, you know, we want light. So Jesus said, let there be light. And the Holy Spirit was like, all right, here we go. And we got the energy, and bam, there was light. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's how it was, and there was no name. There was no name,
There
and
was no name. Right.
God chose to say, you know, it was light, and that was it. And so that's immediately when I heard manifestation, I was like, okay, no, because I'm going to tell you that I used to go with manifestation all the time, right? The law of attraction,
Well,
the I,
manifestation in this sense is just the universe, is stuff. It's the thing that can be perceived. It is that which is not void. That's
oh,
what
okay.
this is referencing, right? And so
Oh,
it
I see.
flows
Okay.
among manifestation, meaning so uh, right. So what we're saying is before the manifestation, before there was any manifestation,
Oh, okay. All right. So
right?
it's
There
being
is
used in a
void,
different way. Okay. Okay.
right?
I
So
apologize. Okay.
no, that's fine. Manifestation is like you manifest things by making them real, right?
Right,
So
right,
like law of attraction, all of that stuff. And I'm not
right.
a big law of attraction kind of,
No, I'm not either anymore.
right.
Yeah, right.
Like whatever. Like if you could manifest everything, why would you want to manifest anything?
Exactly.
Right? Like the idea
Exactly.
is like embrace that gift of life that you've received and observe God or Tao or whatever in this moment. Just how is that imbued in this moment? And so when in this particular kind of reference of manifestation, what it's talking about is the stuff. There, it is not void. That which is not void is manifestation. And so that's what this is referencing.
Okay. I'm glad that you cleared that up, because immediately what I thought when I heard manifestation, and see, this is where I have to get much better, and what I really need to work on is, like, when I hear something like that, right? Then it's like, okay, nope, that wasn't manifestation. That was God. You know what I mean? And I can't close my ears off or
Right.
my mind down
Right.
what it may possibly be.
You know, and
You
this
know what I
is,
mean? And that's what's
yeah.
important in conversation.
So in my kind of circles, because I have 23 years clean and sober, so I talk about certain things in
Oh,
certain ways.
congratulations. That is
Thank you.
amazing. Praise
And
God.
when I talk about things like that, like I hear something and I immediately think this, that is because you and we all have this. You are currently one of two things, right? Like, depending on how you want to address it. Like, you either have a frame of reference that for that word, you have a definition for that word that is only because of your experience, right? Like and this is why it's impossible for me to speak and you to hear what I'm saying. You can only hear what you're hearing.
Mm-hmm.
I can hear what I'm saying, but
Right, right.
I can't hear what you're saying because I can only hear what I'm hearing. And so what I'm saying and what you're hearing have nothing to do with one another. And we have to be able to, be present with each other and recognize myself in you and where I'm putting in my definitions and where I'm getting in the way and living under the influence of the experiences that I've had.
Exactly. No, I agree 150%. And, you know, I think for me, what it is, like, you've had your experiences with both, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because you were with Jesus, and,
Uh-huh.
um, and if I'm understanding what you're just saying, what you just said, and please, and if
Yeah.
I have it wrong, then I ask you to clarify for me. Um, and then I have had, obviously, that's where I'm walking right now. And then for the longest time, I was looking for, spirituality in other places, and have, like I said, with Tao, and with, uh, I can't, like, different areas that I
Yeah.
had.
Yeah.
Um,
And
so,
we also have to recognize that journey in which you took to explore Tao or explore Buddhism or explore yoga or other things. I don't know what you've explored, but anytime that you were exploring those things, those were still inspired by God. Like, God and Jesus were on your side saying, yes, explore these things because I want you to find you and your truth with us, right? Like that's like you're being guided to do that. You're not going away from God. God is there. Like, you might think you're going away from God, but why would God leave you? Like, is he being like, is he just going to be like, oh, you don't like me anymore, I'm going to go over here? No, God is he's got a little bit more going on than that. So while you're going, he's like, yes, explore. I don't, why, like, there's no way he's not going to have faith in the fact that you'll be back, right? I just realized that you had dropped, so I'm bringing you back up right
no, that's
now.
okay. No. And I see what you're getting, because, he will always, God is a patient God. He's a gentleman. He won't force himself, right? And,
Mhm.
and he wants us with him. And, but can I ask you an interesting question? Why is it, I know you said that, you were raised with, God and Jesus. Is there a reason that you chose not to stay on that path particularly?
Um, God
And
didn't want me on that path.
God didn't want you on that path? Yeah. Oh,
Well, whatever. It's like
I
I'm not
was just
wrong,
curious.
right? Like, like, Like if he wanted me on that path, wouldn't I be?
Um,
I mean, I can't. You know, I mean, I know in some circles, it's like I am on this path. That's all. And it's not that they're. It is just this is what my life is inspired to be. It's not like I didn't make any of these choices. These choices are being made through me.
mm-hmm. Okay. When did you start following the Taoism? Just out of
Well, one, I'm
curiosity.
not a Taoist.
Okay. Oh, I'm
Okay.
sorry. Okay.
Taoism.
That's where like I need to learn more about this because that's what I like to do is to like with this. I love listening to you because you are very intelligent and know about what you are speaking.
Yeah.
And so you're somebody that I can have these kind of conversations with.
So for me, Tao is the kind of underlying nature of the universe,
Okay.
as I understand it. Like that's the best way I can explain it. How you understand those words, I can't tell you if that's ever right or wrong or whatever. Right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what you hear when I say that. As we
Mm-hmm.
spoke earlier, the other thing is Tao is as it's. I mean, it's not a philosophy, but that's kind of how I was brought into it. Like when I was starting to get sober, like I was introduced to the Tao Te Ching as a text. Now the text consists of 81 chapters. This number 25, I call it Tao, being one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes sense to me, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
this has always resonated with me.
Mm-hmm.
This text, these 81 verses have always, and they continue to change every time I look at them. They continue to grow and evolve, and my understanding of them grows and evolves. And there is no rule here. Like when I work with people, I say, look, if you're truly a murderer, right? If God put you on this planet to be a murderer, you will only be a better murderer after doing this. Now, if you're not a murderer, but you are pretending to be one, you will find out that as well. So this is sort of the balance of everything. It's just like, look, if this is truly who you are, and you take this and you start asking these questions and you start moving in this direction, you will find truth within yourself. And that truth is inspired by, we can use the word God, we can use Jesus, we can use Tao. Tao is nice because I was raised, with God, and God has certain connotations and certain rules and certain, ways of, being. I do resonate more with a feminine universe than I do with a masculine universe, and Tao is feminine, where the traditional religions are in Christianity are masculine, and so I just don't resonate with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, it was interesting because like you just said, when you brought up, like, if God put you on earth to be a murderer. So, and I don't know if that's just like an example that you're using, but is that kind of like the way that you like believe things, that in certain circumstances, that's how it's meant to be? Like, you know what
But belief is a weird thing. I don't hold on to beliefs.
I mean?
So I don't put any limits on my beliefs. So
Okay.
it's not that I believe, but it's like I don't have to believe. Like you are you, and
Right, right.
if you happen to be a murderer, well, that's not for me to say is right or wrong or good or bad. Like that's what you are. That's okay.
Well, see, for me, what it like with like murderers, okay? I mean, you think about it, when we are all born into this world, it is that we're all born as sinners. and simply because what it comes down to is, you take it all back, and I know it sounds like, I think for some people it sounds very surreal, or sounds like, one of those, I don't want to say fairy tales, but we bring it all back to the Garden of Eden when Adam and Eve sinned, and so from that point on, sin was in the world, and so we're all born as sinners, and it's hard to think that babies, little bitty babies that are so innocent, are sinners, but the fact of the matter is that we are, and
So this is getting a little far afield of like what we're talking about, and I want to make sure that we kind of
oh, okay,
keep it, just because this
absolutely,
is,
right,
I would have no problem having a conversation with you offline about
oh,
this, and
absolutely,
I do know, I do kind of see where you're going, and that's why I'm sort of like, let's not like,
okay,
only
yep,
because it is getting a little bit more. So this, I call it Tao. Once again, as we
right,
kind of wrap it up, it's like all beings follow their planet, planets follow their universe, universes follow Tao. And even when you're talking about like the triune God, right, like the Holy Spirit,
hmm
Jesus, and God, we do see like these transitions, right, from universe to planet, from planet to individual. And that
hmm
individual doesn't have to be necessarily a human being. It could be an animal. It could be water. It could be all sorts of things.
all
And
living
those,
things,
right, all things, even
right, right,
because even the cells in your wall are are alive, like the in the microbial sort of sense, like there is movement there,
right, right,
you know
yeah,
and so these things are communicating to possibly the different levels, right? God, then Jesus, then the Holy Spirit, and then Tao, or God, or the universe, or however we want to say that, follows only its nature. And the nature of God, like, there's nobody above that, right?
no, God is everything. When we discuss God, like there's God, and that's what people have a hard time grasping, I think, is that we have God. It's three parts in one. It's like when you have a tricycle, right? You have three tires, and but if one of those tires is, they have to all work together to get that tricycle to move, right? But they're all independent of each other, yet they're all equally the same. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. Without
uh,
one, the others don't move.
right, and they're all equally as important. And that's how it is with the triune. You have God the Father, you have God the Son, and you have God the Holy Spirit, and they all play an equally important role. But God the Father is, the head, and then you have, God the Son, who is Jesus, who came, and here's the word manifest again. He was made manifest, as a human, as a man.
Right. He came into the earth. That's what we're
That's
talking
right.
about. Like, it became physical.
Yeah, exactly. Because, at that point, God wanted the world to see himself as, so they could see what he had been doing all these, these decades and centuries, the miracles, the healings, and look, here I am.
Yeah.
And also to humble himself. That's why humility, that's why God values humility, right? Is he didn't have to humble himself. He's God, right?
Right. And I want to, and I, and I want to kind of point out as we kind of wrap this up, like the title of this is I Call It Tao. You know,
hmm
like, and I wrote this translation and titled this. And so when this is like, as we're talking about this, yes, I call it Tao. That is
hmm
not saying you have to. That is not saying that anybody has to call it anything like, it, the title of this references the idea that, like, look, this is my experience, right? And so
Right,
when we're looking at this and you want to see this and see that, oh, before manifestation of heaven, there is God. Before the manifestation of this thing, before it became into existence, there was void. And that was,
right,
I call it Tao.
And that's what you're saying is like the underlying
The
nature.
underlying nature of all
Okay.
things, right?
Okay.
And
Yeah.
and that's what drives us to be inspired. That's what drives us to, like, because it flows.
That's what Tao is. That's
Right.
what the
Yeah.
okay. You know what I'm going to do today is I'm going to take some time to go ahead and read up on what is it? Just it's 81 pages, is that, or chapters,
Well,
right?
it's 81 verses. Like, this is one of the verses. This was verse 25.
Okay. Oh, okay. I see and so that's what like the whole like the what Tao is.
Well, the
Well, I'm
entire
gonna
Tao Te Ching is the
okay.
title of the book, and it was written in 600 BC, so it was written 600 years before Jesus,
Okay.
um, and it is a text that's been with us for a long time. Yeah.
Well, you know what I think would be so much more fair, so that, you know what I mean, is for me to definitely, because you've had, obviously, the life that I'm living now, right? You have experienced that prior to this. And I didn't have any kind of knowledge, and definitely not as deep as you have with Tao. And so I think that prior to me ever joining you again, I should probably look more into what your beliefs are, right?
Well, I would disagree with that. You don't have to know my beliefs at all. Like, we're here connecting, and that's all. Like, I don't
That's
I
true.
like I love you, and I want you
Aw,
to
you're so
be.
sweet, and I love you too. You are just, you know what? If I could reach through this and just give you the greatest, biggest hug, because I am such a hugger, like you don't even know. Like, I just love people, and I think you're amazing for sharing your beliefs. You know, it's not just about knowledge, right? It's about sharing your beliefs and how that drives you to live and spend your life.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, it's and even though, like, I wouldn't, I like, again, words are particular, right? Every individual holds words certain definitions, and it's really difficult to communicate. So what we do is we communicate energetically, just like that hug that you're giving me, right? Like that's
Yep.
how we communicate. That's the way that we connect, right? We connect, and we don't need this app to connect. We can just close our eyes, and God or Tao is going to guide us. And just like you can connect with the church that's an hour and a half away from you without ever stepping foot in it,
Yeah.
right? In your
Yeah.
heart is where that church resides.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
could take your physical body to it, and that's a wonderful thing, and you'd have an experience that would be different. However, that's not necessary with Tao, with God, with, like, that's only necessary in manifestation. And God and all of us exist on another plane as well.
Mm-hmm. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's and we are enveloped by that, and we are surrounded by that.
You're a good man, Martin.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Absolutely. And I'll talk to you soon, okay?
I'm looking forward to it.
You have a blessed day, honey.
You as well.
Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to bring up Spring Blossom, and I do see Catherine, you're in the queue. I know you got to get ready for work. If you can't stick around, I totally understand, but I hope we get to connect. Hello, dear.
Hello.
Spring Blossom. How are
Hi.
you?
I'm good. Had a
So
big day.
what's going on with you these days?
Lots of stuff. Too much.
let's
Yeah.
just let's just let's just be happy for a second. That's so
Yes,
nice.
that's
It's so good.
it's good. Yeah. Ah, I love you, Martin Joe.
Oh, I love you as well. It's so good to connect. I'm
Yeah.
glad I saw you in the queue. I know you've been waiting for a minute, so I appreciate your patience.
It was good to listen to Mary May.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is the thing about having different doctrines that we've been listening to, and like her, I've been listening to many different things that have always got some jewel of value to them. And you know, to have that respect for all different ways that people have come to look towards their spiritual development or insight or awakening.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's 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 a that's what we're here on earth to do. We're here to listen to our inner self, to find out, who am I? What am I doing here?
I always say, I don't care how you learn to love yourself.
Mm,
Just do it. Because
that's
the
it.
more you love yourself, the more you're going to be able to show others love, and the more you're going to be contributing to a beautiful world.
Oh
And
dear.
if you can't love yourself, and that's the thing, I always tell, like, when I do my Recover Yourself workshops and things like that, like, I always tell people, like, look, if you see something in the world that you don't like, there's something going on within your life you don't like. I was talking
Yeah.
about this yesterday. I was coaxed into a discussion, into a debate with somebody, and I don't like to debate. I don't like to get into proving my point. I'm not someone who needs to prove himself. But I was talking with friends of mine about my niece, and it was very personal, and then someone that I didn't know very well chimed in, and I got kind of baited into this debate. And at the end of the debate, I was really upset, and I was frustrated. And the reason I was frustrated was because I felt like he was toying with me, because I was emotionally invested in the conversation, and he wasn't. So it was easy,
Uh-huh.
right, for him to kind of be in that space. And I had to be like, okay, well, where do I toy with people? And I did find a place where I do that in my life, and it was like really nice for me to realize that about myself, because now
Yeah.
that there's awareness in that place, I can do that. I can be more respectful of others, and I can be more open. And it's it's in a place where like there are times where I get a little flirtatious, but I have no intention of like being with somebody, but like I can be flirtatious, and it's like, oh, I'm actually toying with them in a way, and it's not nice, because like, it could be fun if we're both on the same page, but that's not
Sure.
always the
That's the
case.
thing.
And
Yeah.
there are times where I've done that, and
Yeah.
I, like, now that I'm seeing what I'm doing, I'm like, oh, I need to be able to I need to keep aware of that. And that came to me because I had this debate that I was kind of baited into, and and I was like, oh, this is where people are emotionally maybe investing in me, in something they're interacting with me, and I'm not emotionally invested. And I was like, wow, thank you for
Mm-hmm.
helping me become aware of this aspect of myself.
Mm-hmm. And this is self inquiry, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
every time I get triggered, I always come home and I do my work, and I say, why am I upset? And where
Mm.
in my life is that happening? And then
Yeah.
I get to become increasingly aware of who I am. And I get to love myself even more, because
Yeah.
that part of myself, it's not that I'm ashamed of it, but I definitely don't love that I act like that, right? I've talked about this idea of like, do you like that you're doing this? Well, I actually don't like that I do that. I like how it makes me feel, like flirting with somebody and whatnot, but I don't like that I'm doing it, because I know that I don't have intentions on the other side.
Yeah. It's your integrity that's being questioned.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Absolutely. And so that's a
Yeah.
beautiful way of being, I think.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. And this is one of the things too between, you know, men and women that needs to be deeply investigated, because there's been too much assumption being made, both
right.
by and female, doesn't matter,
Mm-hmm.
you know, about the way in which we interact with each other.
Right.
You know, if we're not on the same page, then don't push anybody any which way.
Right. Right.
If it if it's happening, it's happening. If it's not happening, don't do it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Absolutely.
because
And that's a big deal.
there's so much there's so much beauty when it's a two-way street,
Right. Yeah.
and we can engage that way, that excites one another in a way that is so joyful.
Right. Yeah. And
And we don't want to,
like, and
yeah,
I never take it, like it never gets, like, I'm not a womanizer, you know what I mean? I don't
no,
like, I don't,
I know that.
it's
I
nothing
know
like that,
that.
but I'm, but I'm playful, like,
Yeah,
and there are times, like, even on here, where it's just like, oh, I love you, and I do love you, and I will tell my friends that I love them, but there are times where, like, I'm flirtatious, and then if that happens, like, if I tell somebody I love them and I have been flirtatious, well, then that starts changing things, especially if they don't know that I say I love you to everybody, like, so
yeah,
those sorts of
yeah.
things can get really, and I just want to be more full of integrity. I just want to have more integrity.
That's it. Me
Yeah.
too.
So let's
That's it.
find a number.
Okay. 14.
14. Hidden in plain sight. Look, and there is nothing to see. Listen, and there is nothing to hear. Reach, and there is nothing to grasp. These three things come together. They combine and are one. This is the mystery and cannot be named. It is present in all manifestation and is forever returning to nothing. So subtle it cannot be identified, so conspicuous it is never hidden. Consider a time before history to show you how to yield. You cannot know it, you cannot prove it, but still you can be it. You are using it right now, but for what? Oh my God. Like the way that ended, especially after all that we were just talking about. You are using
Yeah.
it right now, but for what?
Mm. Mm. Wow.
When we start talking about this idea of, like, integrity, look and there's nothing to see. Listen and there's nothing to hear. Reach and there's nothing to grasp. There's nothing there.
Then you're not making judgment.
Right. These
Mm.
three nothings come together. They combine and are one. Then all of a sudden we have manifestation. We have stuff. This is the mystery and
Right.
cannot be named. It is present within all manifestation and is forever returning to nothing. Even this conversation will return to nothing. It will just be in the universe. When I started making artwork, I didn't put a lot of faith in like how many people came to the opening. It's like it exists, and its existence is the thing that makes it worthy or worthwhile. The fact that
Mm.
it exists, it doesn't have to be seen, it doesn't have to be interacted with, it doesn't have to be written about. It can just fade, but it will still exist because it is in my mind, it is in the mind of those few people that maybe have engaged with it.
It's funny, something that was you were saying before about the way in which the conditioning of the Western mind, because of our history with Christianity, is that God's always watching,
Mm.
and I really, that resonated with me in the realm of I go about my day. Sometimes I don't see anybody. I'm doing some gardening. I'm cleaning the roof. I'm painting the
Cleaning
wall.
the
Whatever
roof.
it is.
Wow, you're up there. Jeez,
Yeah,
good
and
for you. Just sweeping the roof off. I don't know.
yeah, I'm doing some housework in this house. I've got where I'm living. I've been doing some clearing up of the little cottage.
Yeah,
I'm not living in it; someone else lives in it, but they're away. So while they're away, I'm doing this thing, and yeah. Anyway, that just slipped out.
yeah. No,
Um,
quite all right.
uh, but the feelings that I have often is while I'm doing something, I feel the presence of someone watching me, and
Yeah,
And I go, who is that? Who is that? You know,
Yeah.
like I want to understand what that energy is. And then you had that thing where you were saying about because it could be that ancient knowledge from the Christianity, talking about God watching and, you know, God taking notes and all of that. Um, and and so therefore it's not there. It's something that has been manifested through generations of feeling that God's watching us and judging us,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I say to myself, who's doing the judging? Who's judging me? I'm judging me,
Right.
right? I'm judging me. It's not that there is that the presence is all around me. There's so much consciousness in all of the plants, animals, trees. Everything is conscious there, right?
Right.
So I'm experiencing that, but then I hear this other part which feels like a criticism.
And you know what's interesting about that is this line, consider a time before history.
Yeah.
What's interesting, when I wrote this, I was like, well, what does history mean? And history, like, because there's prehistory, and what that means is before anything was written down. Once you
Yeah.
start writing things down, you create history. But
Yeah.
prehistory, so consider a time before anything was written to show you how to yield. Consider a time before there was any rule. Consider a time before there was anything that could be held on to and grasped.
And also, history is written by men mostly
Right.
in relation to human activity in places where they were writing down. There were plenty of places where they weren't writing down.
Right.
Um, they there was things on walls in caves that talked about messages. There's always been a natural law within communities or
Right.
tribes, or there's always been some directive in that way of working together and being aware of where you do and don't do things and right
Yeah.
from wrong, basically. Um, so it's even going back prior to that, if you wish, and then you're not in. Well, I don't know. Maybe this is the thing about being a human being. How long have we been engaging with regulations that have helped us guide us?
Well, and that's why this is saying consider a time before history, before
Mm.
before any of that, to show you how to yield. What we're saying is consider a time to and what are we yielding to? We're yielding to the idea that because what we're talking about here is listen, there's nothing to hear, reach and there's nothing to grasp, look and there's nothing to see. And it's like, but we see this, we hear this, we're grasping, and that's what our mind wants to do. And our mind wants to do that because of all of the things that were written, because of all of the things that we value, because of all of the things that we understand. Go on. Oh, you dropped down? Sorry. Let's get you back up really quick, and then once again, Catherine, we'll get you as soon as wrap this up, and then if you're still able to hang out.
That's what came up for
Okay.
me.
What came up?
Interpretation.
Yeah.
It's the way that we interpret.
Right. And you got to recognize that your entire life has been fed by the interpretations of other people.
Exactly.
And you've interpreted interpretations of interpretations.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is why it's asking you to consider a time before history, just any time before any of those interpretations were, like, when they were still stories, because we did tell stories and stories did
Yeah.
go from generation to generation, but every generation would change that story, and you wouldn't have any proof that that story changed at all.
That's right. But the
So,
essence of the story was necessary to be carried through in order for the people to expand their consciousness.
right. And that expanded enough to start writing things down. We were like, oh, we got to write this down. That's a good idea. Like, and then we became stupid, right? Because we didn't interpret
Yes,
anymore. Now we just took
exactly.
the meaning of the words.
The words became God.
Right. That's what happened, right? And then it says, like, you
Yeah.
cannot know it, right? You can't know if you're doing it. You can't know if you're actually looking and not seeing and listening, if you're constantly proving to yourself. You can't know if you're actually in touch with God. You can't know if you're actually in touch with Tao. You can't
No.
prove that you're moving in the direction of Tao. You can't prove that you're moving in the direction of God, the way that God wants you to do. But you can still be moving in that direction. You can still know. You can be engaged at this. You're using it right now, but for what? And that's what, like, are you using, like, this inspiration that God or Tao has given you to prove yourself right? Are you using this, or are you using it to self-reflect? Are you using it to be the best you? Are you using it to love yourself? Are you using it to accept everybody? Are you using it to do the things that are most needed in the world today?
That's it. Agree.
And the
And this
title
is
of this
it,
again, and the title of this was Hidden in Plain Sight. It's everywhere. And I love the line in here that says, where is it? Let me find it really quick. It's like so subtle it's never seen. So subtle it cannot be identified. Like it's so subtle. Like you can't just open someone up and say, here's your soul. And so conspicuous it is never hidden. You see the inspiration in the eyes of everybody you pass on the street. It's never hidden.
But you don't see your own side. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So beautiful.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Your pleasure.
Oh,
So much.
I love you, and I'm looking forward to exploring another one with you.
Yeah, me too. Thank
All
you.
right.
Ciao.
Ciao. Okay, Catherine, if you're still there, we would love to. Hello? You still with me, Catherine? Oh, you're muted. We'll give it a little time. So we went through. I read 77, and then Mary came up, and we chose 25, and then Spring Blossom came up, and we just looked at 14. And 14, hidden in plain sight, like everything that we experience, right? All that we experience is God, is Tao, is like it is imbued with all of this life. And if we look for it, we can't see it. If we listen for it, we can't hear it. If we reach for it. Oh, Catherine, are we back?
Can you hear me?
Yep, I gotcha.
Okay. I'm on my Bluetooth speaker on my phone in my car.
Okay.
I wasn't it was going to work. I don't know, something weird with that. And I kept, navigating out, and then I had to re-add my request. So.
Well, here you are. Are you traveling into work right now?
Yeah, I am.
Well,
so I'm just going to talk for.
Thanks for keeping me around.
Well, I didn't know if you were going to keep going, so it was fine.
No, Thursdays I have a hard stop, but other days I'm pretty open. So.
Okay. Yeah, I remember one day you went really long, and you had almost 400 listeners or something. It was a lot.
Yeah, the longer you're on, the more people pass through. Like I don't try and think about the listeners, because if you come and then just swipe past and you move on to the next thing, that's okay, no big deal. But I always like to just connect with you, to connect with the person I'm talking to, or just think about what I'm doing. And I don't really think about it too much. So that's nice. But, so what's going on?
I got to meet up with the lady I was talking to, who she's interested in peace. Like one of the
Yeah.
people that the guy recommended me. She was like super excited, like just excited, maybe more than I was. I didn't know how old she was. Like age is not a big deal to me, but she is. She said she was 72 or 79, so like she's older than I am. But like we had a really good talk. We went out to eat. She is very generous, and she wants to contribute in any way she can, because I told her what I'm trying to start a chapter of Code Think here. So that was, left me with a very positive feeling. So I think that'll
Good.
be a good relationship for me to get started with. I also sort of drifted into political activism a little. I'm getting involved with the Jill Stein campaign. So it kind of rolled in with my Code Pink stuff, So I'm like doing some volunteering with that now.
All of this stuff, once you start making changes in your life, if you stick with it just long enough for your life to be like, oh, you're making changes, you'll start to see these things just come in. Now, you're going to see opportunities come in left and right. And eventually, you may have to be like, okay, I have to say no to something, and you're going to have to curate your life again. Like you had to do that many, many years ago, and you curated it to be something. And now you're like, no, I want change. I'm going to do some things, maybe join Noom or whatever, like all these little things. And then, there's three things in your life that, that sort of guide things, right? There's the chemical aspect of your life, there's the physical aspect of your life, and there's the spiritual aspect of your life. And when you get two of those going in the right direction, the third will always catch up.
It sure feels like it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So work is getting better. We're on a deadline, and today's the last day pretty much, but I'm going to meet it, so I'm excited.
Congratulations. I'm so glad.
Yeah. Things are still kind of, I'm not really interested in smoothing out the relationship with my boss yet. So Things are a little tense. But other than that, I just wanted to pick a number, and then I'm going to have to get off here, and I'll just listen to you talk, because I'll have to walk into the garage, and I won't be able to
Sounds good.
And talk.
All right. So what's your number?
Number 18.
Number 18. Okay. Number 18, is out of touch with Tao. I will relate this back to you as best I can. So, out of touch with Tao. This is a very short one. And let me just go ahead and read it, and then we'll go into it. So, when out of touch with Tao, etiquette is observed. When etiquette cannot be abided, we find excuses to make it proper. When excuses gut the family, chaos favors the hierarchy. When all the neighbors are in chaos, blind loyalty is demanded. Okay. This is a really interesting Tao, Catherine, for you at this moment, because there's so much going on in your life. One, I think you're getting increasingly in touch with Tao by allowing things to be as they are and opening yourself up to the opportunities that are around you. So when out of touch with Tao, this is about the dissolution of Tao in one's life, in one's experience, right? So if you're living your life as a child, like children are really the only ones that are 100% just like locked in with Tao until they start living under the influence of their parents. But when out of touch with Tao, etiquette is observed. What that means is you don't know what's right, but you know what you've been told is right. And because you know what you've been told is right, you follow that, like your relationship with your boss, or even like what you're supposed to do when you're at a table with an elder, or whatever, right? Like, so when out of touch with doubt, etiquette is observed. And so you observe etiquette. When etiquette cannot be abided, we find excuses to make it proper, right? So what that means is, you're supposed to be nice at work, and it's like, oh, I'm not nice at work because I didn't sleep. We find excuses to make it proper. We make it okay for us to get around the fact that we know we're supposed to abide etiquette. The thing is that etiquette is the first sign that we are losing touch with Tao. And then when we can't keep up the etiquette, we make excuses because that's what we do, right? When excuses gut the family, chaos favors the hierarchy. That means that when everybody is when everybody is just has excuses and everybody's a victim and everybody's, running around with their reason why they can't do whatever it is they want to do, like all of a sudden chaos favors the hierarchy. That means that there's a boss, they're in charge, right? You have a manager and they're in charge of like and there's a hierarchy, and we favor the hierarchy rather than like listening to the person who mops the floor to make the business a better business. We favor the hierarchy, and we look down on the person who mops the floor and all of that kind of stuff. So like now we have a hierarchy, like where you are in your company, like then you're, if you're on the lower end of the totem pole, like nobody's going to be listening to you, even if you do have answers for that sort of thing. When all the neighbors are in chaos, blind loyalty is demanded. That means when everybody is in chaos, when everybody is a victim, when, like all the bosses don't know what they're doing, then you have to find blind loyalty to one person or one entity, and one person drives you forward. And that's, as you get into dictatorships and as you get into, even families, individual families that are like abused by one individual in the family, like everybody is abused down the chain, maybe even neighborhoods that, find that where it's like, like homeowners associations, right? Maybe. So all of that sort of stuff. And that all starts because you get out of touch with Tao. Now, Tao is speaking to you all the time. It's inspiring you to move in certain directions, inspiring you to, I want to try something new. And, then you find yourself just randomly on a website that's telling you about activism, or it's talking to you about, something else. And it's like, oh, that's interesting. And then you start to move in that direction. But when you say, I don't trust myself, I don't know myself, and I don't trust myself to do the right thing, I better lean on etiquette. I'm going to be nice. Well, that's the first stage of dissolving Tao from your life. You are being inspired to go somewhere, to be something, to try something, to say something. And when you say, oh no, the right thing to say is this, the right thing to do is this. And then when you don't do that, you're like, oh, well, I didn't say that because you did something else, right? You become a victim. And that's dissolving even further. And so this is really all, and I do have to say, Catherine, if you're still listening, this really all does tend to you trusting yourself more, having more faith in that you know the right answer. You're being inspired to do something right now. You're inspired to say something. Say it. Do it. Be it. Like even if you're like, oh, I'm going to push myself too much, or I'm not, like all of that. It's just like, take a breath. Say, what am I being guided to do? And as we do that, as we move into that space of being guided and allowing ourselves to trust ourselves, well, we're going to find ourselves in all of that. Well, Terry's going to join me. Thank you, Catherine. By the way. Terry, how are you, my friend?
Hello, how are you, Martin?
I'm well. How's it going? Nice. Thanks for joining me today.
It's going great. I've got a day to myself, so I thought I wouldn't allow you to have a hard stop, and I know you said you wasn't going to have one today anyway.
No,
So,
have a list. I always I love just keeping it going, man. I love it.
Yeah. 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 So it's organic, isn't it? That's the
It
way.
is. It is. So you have a free day today. What's what are you gonna spend your time doing?
Well, I had to do some mindful laundry, believe it or not.
Oh no, that's a it's luckily you know laundry we don't have to take it down to the river anymore. You know what I mean?
But
Like,
as I do not have a washing machine, I do have to take it to the laundrette or the laundromat, as you would say in the USA.
yeah, the laundromat. Yeah, well, that's I remember there were times like I'm grateful for having a washer dryer in my home now.
Yeah.
But years of not having that, like I found ways of just kind of like, okay, let's make this a nice thing, like either I'll read or listen to a book or just talk to people. I was talking earlier about flirting. I would do that sometimes, just go and I would like, do a little flirting over at the laundromat.
Well, it's funny you should mention that because I met two of my ex lady friends in
Oh
exactly the
yeah,
same. Yeah.
that's like it's a nice place to mix your whites and colors. You know what I mean?
Yes. You can have some interesting experiences, and it's a good place to people watch as well.
It is. It is. It's
If you're into that sort of
and
thing. Yeah.
yeah, and these days, like there were laundromats which didn't have anything but the hum of the fan in the corner, but now
Yeah.
it's like they just have like game shows and stuff on, and it's just too like they have TVs everywhere, and it's like nobody can be
Well, we
without.
don't have TVs in my one, but anyway,
That's
we don't.
nice. That's
No, you might hear the radio from the attendance office, but that's about it.
Yeah, that's quite all right. But like here, like what I've experienced over the last couple of years at laundromats have been like just they're like little entertainment centers, and you got children running around, and that's all fine. Like I don't mind the children running around, but the children running
Yeah.
around and the TV screaming at me, and it just gets to be too much. So I'm grateful, but I'm glad your place is nice and quiet, little funky
Yeah,
place.
that's not too bad. Yeah,
So
I'm not actually there at the moment, but I'm still at
no,
home.
I recognize, yeah. So let's find a number.
Okay, 51.
51. Hit it. The cycle. This is one I referenced the opening line of this quite a bit. And it's not too long. So this is entitled The Cycle. Life
Mm,
is a gift received from Tao. It
mm,
sustains all things as part of that gift. Everything emerges perfect, unconscious, and free, harmonizing with all things, completely maturing in its own time.
mm,
All things exist and are nourished and are nurtured through Tao. It fosters and provides for them completely. Tao does not possess or interfere, each expressing and maturing in their own nature. When their experience is complete, Tao receives them again.
Cycle of life, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's because, funny enough, a little bit of synchronicity, I suppose, because in one of your conversations earlier, you're talking about, you know, prehistory, and I
Yeah.
immediately was thinking of pictograms,
Yeah.
and yeah, and spirals appear on old rocks throughout the world. Spirals, the cycle. You see, haha.
Yeah. And
S-
that's,
s-
like one of the great things about this is like all things exist and are nurtured through Tao. So all things exist through Tao and all things are nurtured through Tao. But that doesn't say all beings.
Yeah,
It's all things, like even an idea, an animal, an idea, water, a planet,
yeah, a leaf.
a leaf, right? It fosters and provides for them completely. That leaf is provided for completely. Tao does
Yeah,
not possess or interfere, so when it's time for that leaf to leave the tree, it will fall. Each
yeah,
expressing and maturing in their own nature. There are times, when wind blows and a leaf that is fresh and young will fall off a tree And that's expressing itself and maturing in its own nature.
Yes.
When their experience is complete, Tao will receive them again. That doesn't mean that you have to complete it in a certain way. You don't have to. You don't have to get it. You don't have to get anything accomplished during that. You just, when your experience is complete, when the experience of this idea, when the experience of this planet, when the experience of this leaf is complete, Tao will receive them again.
It's a good metaphor for us as well.
Yes.
Our experience, yeah. And I've been listening to all the conversations. Very interesting today, actually. I'm glad I caught it today because, it's people do get tied down with beliefs, don't they? And it has to come through this particular deity in history, or it has to come from that one, or
Yeah.
and it doesn't
And,
matter.
and, and
All
no,
roads lead to Rome.
that's right. That's right.
The
I
spokes.
don't care. I don't care what you call it. Like, there
No,
is something on the other side of all this, and there's something within me that is without explanation. It
yes,
needs no proof. I don't need to prove it to you. Like,
no,
this is coming to mind, this idea of proving and being right and all that kind of stuff, and belief. And I told, and I held this for a long time, that I want to believe in everything. Because it's
yes,
easier to believe in everything than not to believe in something.
yeah, exactly, yeah, and also eventually, beliefs change from day to day, and eventually you absorb what is useful and discard what is not.
Yeah. And if I can hold on to the belief that, like, whether the world is flat or round, I can hold both of those beliefs to be true without having to prove either one.
Yes, we do not need to prove anything to anybody, least of all
Right.
ourselves.
But the moment you don't believe something, you want it to be proven wrong.
Oh well, yeah, that is a truism as well, isn't it?
So that's why I say, you know what? Yes, I believe that. Then nobody argues with me, right? Like, yes, I believe in God and the triune God and Jesus and all of that. Yes, I do. It's great. I
Yeah,
also believe in Tao, and I also believe in Muhammad, and I also believe in all of the other things, because I don't want to engage in having to prove anything's right.
yeah,
And when you
yeah.
believe in something, you don't have to prove it. I look at Christians all over the country not acting like Christians, and they don't have to prove that they believe in anything. So,
No, yes,
like, I'd rather just allow it to exist,
yeah.
and to love it, and to love you, and to love everybody, rather than like be like, I'll love you if you tell me that the world is flat, right, or whatever.
Well, yeah, and it was touched on earlier. It's this manifestation and the particle of the universe that is us having this experience. It's it's only a tiny part of us. The bigger part of us is in the universe, or with source, if you like.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it, and
Absolutely. That's why there's no need to prove it.
exactly.
Like,
And
do you think God needs to prove himself?
of course he doesn't. And why do people get offended on behalf of
Right.
Geo?
Yeah.
You know,
You think God cares if someone doesn't believe in him? Like, whether or not they believe in him doesn't mean that God's influence isn't isn't in their life.
that's
Doesn't
right.
matter. Like, that's what I like about the text of the Tao. The Tao doesn't care. Whether
That's
you
right.
whether you believe it or not, it's still working through you. Like,
Yeah, it is what
just
it
like,
is.
like when Mary asked me, well, why did you step away from the path of God? Well, God didn't want me to be on it. If he did, I would be.
Yeah, and
Simple.
I
It's not
don't like.
for me. It's not for me to have an excuse for that. It's not for me to talk about it.
Uh,
It's not for me to decide why.
yeah,
That's not, like, this is just what is. I don't
yeah,
have to
it is.
prove anything to God.
That's right. That's right. And you know, this is why you can't tell anybody else how to live their life, and they can't
Right.
tell you how to live your life,
Yeah.
because everybody's journey and experience is different. And at the end of the day, we are all one, but the paradox is we are all unique and all have our own purpose.
Right.
The same.
Just like you don't want the cells in your brain to go try and be skin cells on your foot. Like that's not going to work. So it's like, why would you want to try and be someone else?
That's another, yes, exactly. That's another topic, because I believe each cell is a universe in itself.
I
So
do. Yeah. Right. And even though they make up your body, one thing that we experience, it is an individual.
yes,
That's
and
just like us. You have your path, I have mine for this
yeah,
bigger thing. Can we see the bigger thing? No. But
yeah,
it's there and we're contributing to it.
yeah, and everything has its own reason for existing. So yeah, fascinating talk, Martin. And
Always.
hopefully I'll talk to you soon. And my heart was warmed to see yours truly back. And I had a funny
Yes.
feeling. I did have a kind of mini premonition over the last week or two. I thought I wouldn't rule out Julie making a reappearance, because she's got her purpose and she's come back to experience it in a different way, which is fantastic. And that's truly Julie.
True. Yes. Truly, Julie. Truly yours. Truly, Julie, yours. Julie, truly yours. I don't. I love her, and I'm so glad that we can interact again.
That's right. And from truly Julie to yours truly, saying thank you, Martin. Have a good day.
Absolutely. Thank you. You as well. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. We covered 5 different DAOs today, so that's nice. Always a pleasure to do that. Love you guys. Love you all. Mary, thank you so much for coming up and talking to me. I'm looking forward to communicating with you offline. Probably. I mean, we'd be able to talk more about some of that stuff. Again, this program definitely kind of focus on DAO, and we want to just respect like what like the boundaries that this has, and picking a number, and we can always talk about God within that, but getting into other scripture and other things like that, like we can definitely communicate offline. Spring Blossom number 14. Jeez, you're such a light. Thank you so much. Catherine, as always, thank you for coming on. Have a great day today. Terry, wrapping it up with the cycle, of course. Thank you so much. I love you guys all. Thank you. Until next time, keep recovering yourself.